It's Unsolicited Hot Take with Thrift Behringer, and I have some fired up hot takes. You're not going to want to go anywhere. A lot happened in the last week in the wonderful world of sports, and I'm going to give you the most, I wouldn't say outrageous, but the most passionate, energetic, fired up takes you can think of. So thank you for joining us. We are presented by Sports Visions and, of course, on Georgia, Alabama Sports Live. I'm able to cover college games because of Sports Visions and DJ Jones, which you can hear me and him every Monday and Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. on 92.1 Smooth R&B. Also, you can follow Georgia, Alabama Sports Live on Facebook and YouTube. You know about the shows. You know about the streaming that we do. Just a lot happening, and enjoy being a part of both of those brands. And thank you so much to DJ Jones and everything that he has meant to me. And I'm excited to be here with Unsolicited Hot Take. And without further ado, let's not beat around the bush. Let's not act like the officer who took down Tyreek Hill, which I will have a pretty good opinion on that. Kind of blows my mind that someone with that mindset gets a gun and feels like he has power to treat people that way. And I know there's police chiefs coming out saying that he did the right thing. If you think that's the right thing, that is what's wrong with our justice system. But I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm going to hold off for that fired up take towards the end, so you're not going to want to go anywhere. We're not talking politics, so we hope you enjoyed the entertaining debate that happened 2 nights ago. But you're not going to get it here, I promise you. I am not left, not right, not up, not down. I am Unsolicited Hot Take with Thrift Behringer, and we're going to have a new segment. So today's show, we're going to obviously overreact to college football, as we always do every time on this show. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Another segment, and I got a few teams that I didn't know what the hell I'm talking about, especially through the first 2 weeks. I'm going to overreact to some NFL teams as well. I'm going to have a segment called I Can't Quit You, and there's a team that I can't quit, and it's not the team you think. That's about an hour and a half from where I live here in Columbus, Georgia. And I'm going to wrap it up with, as I did last year, it's called Nerd Alert. And I last week was telling you every champion from the year 2000, 2001. Well, this time I'm going to do 1997-98 sports calendar year. So the 97 World Series, the 97 obviously, college football national championship, the 97 NFL championship, and then transition that to 97-98 NBA season. I'm going to give you who all won those off the top of my head. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let me bring my handy-dandy notebook. Time to overreact. Okay, and I'm going to start with the team that's 30 minutes away. Last week, I'm sure most of you could clip me saying that Peyton Thorne's going to break Damian Craig's passing record at Auburn University, which is not a lot of yards if you compare to other universities, because Auburn's never been a passing team. Even with Cam Newton, Nick Marshall, Jared Stidham, about a little less than 3,500 yards is the mark that in 97 Damian Craig did for the Auburn Tigers under Terry Bowden. I thought Thorne was going to break that. I thought this receiving core was incredible, and I think I got ahead of myself. What I saw this past Saturday against the California Golden Bears was the worst quarterback performance I have seen, not just in an Auburn uniform, but in a college football uniform for a major Power 5 team that was expected to win 8 or 9 games this year, Jeremy Johnson. And he just happened to play for the Auburn Tigers. I know that may be a bit harsh, but if you saw the throws I saw from Peyton Thorne, I'm not hearing it was just the offensive line, even though he didn't have a lot of time. Cal's defense was literally dominating the entire game. There were throws that cannot be made in that game. There were bad throws that weren't even close to receivers, and it just showed that Thorne is obviously not the quarterback that I thought he was going to be heading into his final year as a collegiate athlete. But it wasn't just that. It was not being able to run the football, getting no push up front. Defensively, allowing Mr. Fernandez, who had a decent game, and did a really good job for the California Golden Bears. Obviously, he outplayed Peyton Thorne tremendously, so that obviously that's just a That's not even a hot take. That's just a plain outright, this is what happened take. Everyone saw it. But the Auburn Tigers, when playing in Jordan-Hare Stadium, you got all the momentum after that first week, obviously against an inferior team. And you put up only 7 points heading into the fourth quarter. Help me explain. Someone explain that to me. And that is Fernando Mendoza, not Fernandez. So excuse me that, but it's Fernando Mendoza who outplayed Peyton Thorne, the sophomore who was not highly recruited. And Thorne, the transfer quarterback from Michigan State, just looked terrible. But it's the fact that the lack of discipline I saw from the Auburn Tigers, not just the turnovers, obviously with you got Jarquez Hunter with a fumble, 4 interceptions from Peyton Thorne. It's bigger than that. There is a problem within Auburn in terms of the fight aspect of it. You have seen, which many people call the voodoo of Auburn. When you play at Jordan-Hare Stadium, something always happens. When does it happen? When's the last time something weird happened at Jordan-Hare Stadium in favor of Auburn? It's been since Gus Malzahn. The last 2 times they played Alabama in Jordan-Hare, the voodoo went towards the opposing team, not for Auburn. So I'm wondering, because of the losing ways and the Auburn fans getting restless and seeing a mediocre team that has not even been close to a contention team since 2019, that Auburn fans are, once they start seeing the turnovers, you start hearing the grumblings, they know what's about to happen. So it's hard for them to stay within the game, and they did their best. I'm not calling the fans out for this. I'm calling Auburn out and their team, because what happened on Saturday should not happen. And I'm not hearing that, well, many people should not have believed that California has a less roster than Auburn. I find that not even close to the truth. And then you're playing at home. You got all the momentum in the world. If the offense, a.k.a. Peyton Thorne, doesn't turn the ball over, your defense played good enough to still win an ugly game, but you won it. You cost yourself because Hugh Freeze has now put all his eggs in the basket of Peyton Thorne. I was talking with Mike G on the Sports Visions radio show, and Hugh Freeze, I guess, is going to go down with Peyton Thorne. I'm not saying he's getting fired. I'm saying at this point, can you not look in the mirror and say, I made a mistake? He should not be the starter for my football program right now. He is obviously not a high-level D1 quarterback. The anomaly was that 1 year at Michigan State, and there's no way he's getting it back. I don't care how prepared he is, how hard of a worker he is, and how good of a leader he is. If he's throwing 4 interceptions and costing you games, none of those 3 things matter. You can be the most prepared guy ever, but if you can't make the throws and then in the moment not have the IQ to, you know what, maybe not force this pass, maybe you should be the quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. And we heard all offseason about how good he is. And, Hughes wanted to, kind of backtrack, saying the offensive line didn't give him enough time. Sounds like Deion Sanders in the Colorado Buffalo. But Peyton Thorne, there's a bigger outlining issue, which is I think he's overrated. And if Auburn wants to salvage this season, I don't think you can keep him at quarterback. The problem is you play a terrible New Mexico team this week, which you should win. I'm not going to say you are going to win bad, but if, let's say he does look a lot better, he throws for 300 yards and multiple touchdowns, you're then thinking the problem's fixed, because the next week Arkansas comes in. They almost beat Oklahoma State. That was one of my upset alerts. Then you got Oklahoma, and then you go the 3-game stretch of Kentucky, Missouri, and Georgia. Again, A&M, that's a winnable game. Kentucky, winnable game. The losing games are Alabama, Missouri, and Georgia. Those are the 3 on the road for sure happening. But Oklahoma's winnable, Arkansas's winnable. All these games are winnable, and you can still finish 8-4, and I think have a positive, effect on moving into next year. And plus, the 2 more wins than you had last year. Obviously, that would be a win for Hugh Freeze. But if that's going to happen, it's not going to come off the arm of Peyton Thorne. Very disappointed in what I saw from the Auburn Tigers. trash offense. They have not had a consistently good offense probably since 2017. And even then, there were inconsistencies under Gus Malzahn. You really have to go back all the way to 2014, 2013, in which every single week you knew they were going to score 30 points. They were going to move the football. There was no stopping them. Since that moment, that was 10 years ago, there's not been a week by week that you think, you know what, the offense is going to give us this many points. Even the Stidham year, 2017, the defense was elite. There were times, a.k.a. the LSU game, a.k.a. the Clemson game that year when they went 10-2. And then Georgia in the SEC championship game, the offense did not show up. And Auburn, who was known for their offense from 2009 when Gene was there till Gus, his second year, 2014, was known for offense. And now they can't even move the football. Disgrace, terrible, atrocious, every type of word is synonym you can think of when trying to talk about the Auburn Tigers. So enough about Auburn. I'm ready to move on from them. They played New Mexico. They're going to win. And Peyton Thorne's actually going to have a decent game, and it doesn't fix the problem of long-term success for this year specifically. Georgia was being Georgia. They dominated, didn't learn anything. That was it. I mean, I'm not about to spend a ton of time on they blew out Tennessee Tech, and then I'm not even going to spend enough time because they play an overrated Kentucky team who look, again, overrated. They look like offensively, they're going to struggle all year moving the football. South Carolina didn't have a great offensive game. Lenore Sellers was decent, but they won by 25 because Kentucky just gave them turnovers. They were terrible. They were bad. And Georgia's going to go into Lexington, Kentucky, and do what South Carolina did, but at an even higher level. They're going to win that in blowout fashion. I'm not even going to spend and waste breath trying to discuss it. So Georgia, they'll continue moving that train along. Overreacting to Alabama? Question mark. That was a close game against South Florida. And I know the scoreboard said 42-16, but everyone was biting their nails, if you're an Alabama fan, the night that Nick Saban was celebrated for Saban Field being named after him. And I didn't like what I saw from that Alabama team. Now, I do think, and there are people out there like Josh Pate that thinks that Alex English, the coach for the South Florida Bulls, is going to be a team in the next few years that wins 10, 11 games, competes for a Group of 5 championship in the American Athletic Conference. But Alabama's still more talented, and that was at home. Now they go on the road. I see upset alert. Throw it up, Chris. Upset alert. Maybe we're going to see Wisconsin take down Alabama. Tyler Van Dyke is the quarterback there. They're 2-0. This is year number 3 under Luke Fickell. If things are going to start turning in the right direction and moving Wisconsin as a contender in the loaded Big Ten, year number 3 for Luke Fickell, you would think this would be the year. And if they're going to take down Alabama, it should be early in Kalen DeBoer's first season, because I think Alabama's obviously going to get better and they're going to be a totally different team offensively at the end of the year. But if you're going to take them down, maybe the best time is right now. That's going to be on Fox. I'm not ready to go out and say Alabama's losing, but I do have a question mark about their team. I'm wondering, are they going to be the contender we thought they were? But the problem is, if you look at the rest of the country, I mean, I still think they can beat Ole Miss. Aside from Georgia, Texas, and maybe Ohio State, Alabama's just as good as anyone else left on that. So I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoff, but I could see an upset happening for sure. Where last week, I thought that was an afterthought, losing to Wisconsin. I'm not overreacting about this. Colorado is who I thought they were, and they're winning 4 games, maybe 5 games this year. What I don't like with Deion Sanders is, and the same thing with Shedeur, stop making excuses. Just accept it, accept responsibility. What's the one thing that everyone loves in leaders is like, hey, I'll take responsibility. We know the offensive line was bad. We know Shedeur didn't have time. Why does he need to come out and throw them under the bus? I don't like that mindset. I also don't think Deion Sanders really knows what it truly means to be a real contending head coach at this level. This is not prime time where it's a reality show. This is actually investing in kids and developing them, not tearing them down and blaming them because your son didn't look good. It's not about your son. It's about Colorado. I think we're forgetting that because everybody keeps saying, well, Shedur's going to go round 1. Okay, did he take the Colorado job to let Shedur be a first-round draft pick? Because I feel like if he stayed at Jacksonville State because of his name, he still was going to be a first-round draft pick. So he went to Colorado because he wanted to prove that he can win at a Power 5 school, and he's not doing it. And the way he's going about it, I don't think he'll ever put Colorado into contending status. Not saying he's not going to be a great coach, and I'm not saying that he's not one of the best recruiters around. He obviously is. But right now, maybe he needs to change a few of the way he is setting his foundation and laying his foundation and setting his culture within his Colorado Buffalo program. Because soon as crap hits the fan, everybody starts pointing fingers. People start getting mad, and that's a team about themselves. That's not a team about everyone else. Another team is who I thought they were, and Northern Illinois didn't let them off the hook, is Notre Dame. God almighty. Shout out to Cam Crowell. Shout out to Curtis Crowell. Cam Crowell plays there, former Carver product. Curtis Crowell, that's his dad. I know he's cheering Northern Illinois on to beat Notre Dame, and that's where Cam plays. And Notre Dame, just obviously under Marcus Freeman, will win 9 or 10 games every year, but he's not a championship-winning coach, and maybe he will be. Remember, this is only year 3 at Notre Dame. The problem is, how long are Notre Dame fans going to give him losing games like this? Because this is 3 straight years he's losing teams he should not lose to. He went 8-4 his first year, 9-3, and then this year, probably going to go 10-2 because the schedule's weak and he's favored in almost every game. The other loss, I think, is going to come against USC. But losing to Northern Illinois at home when you're a 28-point favorite, that's worrisome. It's always also worrisome that the offensive coordinator, who, by the way, was almost the Broyles Coach of the Year last year for LSU and had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Jaden Daniels, Mike Denbrock, he's struggling right now. And is that because of the quarterback situation? Is it because of, Marcus Freeman saying this is how our offense is going to be? I mean, it's not a lot of flash within that offense, not a lot of explosive plays, and Northern Illinois just came in and pushed them around and won the game. Notre Dame is exactly who I thought they were. They were going to be a team that I didn't think would make the playoff, and if they did, it's because of a weak schedule, and I don't think they're even close to being near a Texas and Ole Miss, a Georgia, Ohio State, or even in Alabama. Texas dominant. I called it. I said it on here. I told y'all Texas was going to go in and bully Michigan. I'm not hearing that, Michigan likes to ground and pound, use that big offensive line like they did Ohio State in previous years and last year. This is not the same Michigan team, obviously. They don't have a lot of NFL talent right now starting, but eventually that could turn into it with their developmental system. But obviously right now, they're going to struggle this year. They're going to go 7-5, 8-4, as I made mention last week. And Texas came in and just took their lunch, took their girlfriend, and said, see ya, and then made fun of them while they're walking out. That's what Texas did. They pantsed Michigan. They went into the big house, raucous atmosphere, and it was over with in the first quarter. LSU. This is I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And obviously I don't know what I'm talking about with LSU. Nichols, they won 44-21. The defense still looks suspect. The offense have a tough time moving the football. This is not a contending team, and I don't think they are going to be this year. They're going to go 8-4, 7-5, 9-3, and then people are going to start wondering, is Brian Kelly the right guy under LSU? This is worrisome. Now, I will go eat crow if Brian Kelly does turn this around, because if there's only a few coaches that can do that, he's one of them with this schedule that they play. But the first 2 weeks makes me think this is a 7-5, 8-4 team. And then South Carolina. I said Shane Beamer was going to be fired, and he just told me to go eat crow and that I don't know what I'm talking about. I think South Carolina will be a decent team this year. They'll be competitive in every game they play in. And I honestly think they're going to beat LSU this week at South Carolina. They're going to be 3-0 and ranked. I thought he was going to be fired. He's about to be 3-0 and ranked in the first 3 weeks. So if you told me and South Carolina fans they were going to go 8-4 this year, I'd have laughed in your face saying, what South Carolina team are you talking about? But I overrated Kentucky, overrated LSU. They beat both of them. They're ranked. Why can't they compete against some of the other teams in the SEC? So obviously I was wrong about them. Looking at what's happening this week, not a lot of big games. Alabama, Wisconsin, that's going to be a big one happening. And then the only other ranked game, there's only one ranked game because Wisconsin's not even ranked, is Kansas State and Arizona, which should be a lot of fun, but that's on Friday night. The rest of it is a snooze fest. LSU, South Carolina, that's probably one of the marquee games, and I just told you how overrated I thought LSU was. This week's not a good week for college football. So outside of Friday night, Kansas State, Arizona, and then 12 o'clock, Wisconsin, Alabama, the rest of the games. But this is the week where Kirk Herbstreit says crazy things happen. It's the weeks that you think are going to be snooze fest in which there's a bunch of upsets. So I wouldn't be surprised by that. But just looking at this schedule, and the other two games of note, Oregon and Oregon State. I don't know how good Oregon State is. They are 2-0 heading into this game. And Oregon obviously had to pull it out of their butt to beat Boise State, which I said there could be an upset on here. I wasn't willing to go with it, but Oregon State, people thought they would win the national title. I'm not feeling that right now. Oregon State beat Idaho State and San Diego State, so I don't know how good they are. And obviously, they replaced the coach, but Oregon, everyone thought they were going to be dominant. It was going to be a seamless transition from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel. It has been lack thereof. They barely got past Idaho, and then it took last effort for them to beat Boise State. So would not be surprised if they lost to Oregon State. I think they'll win another close game, but then I think what's going to happen is a game against USC or Ohio State coming up is going to be promoted as a top 10 matchup between two contending teams, and Oregon's going to lose by 20 points because I think that's where they're heading, and I don't think they're a team that's going to be the last 4 to 8 teams left when season's coming to an end. And the other one is Boston College. How about that? Billy O'Brien has BC ranked. Shout out Kai Robichaux from the Glenwood Gators, their leading rusher. They go to Missouri, who, if you look, they're ranked number 6. I think Missouri wins this by 2 touchdowns, but this is Missouri's first real test of the season. And if Boston College does manage to go into Missouri and beat them, now you got to start saying, are they a contender with Miami to win the ACC in Bill O'Brien's first year as the head coach? And then you got to put him as in like coach of the year category. I don't think they're going into Missouri and winning, and I think Missouri is going to dominate them. But if that outcome does happen, then you got to start asking yourself, Bill O'Brien, really good college football head coach, is he going to be a sought-after commodity for any of the other big-time jobs? Even though he's only been at Boston College, this will be year 1. You've seen guys move after 1 year, especially if they're coming off an incredible season, which Boston College looks like they may be in store for this year. Nebraska and Dylan Raiola, love what I saw from them. I told you they're going 9-3 that first week of Unsolicited Hot Take. They're making me look like I know what I'm talking about. And then the AP top 25, you got Georgia, you got Texas, you got Alabama, you got Ole Miss, you got Missouri. 5 teams in the top 10. LSU does come in at number 16. Oh, and Tennessee is number 7. So Ohio State is the only non-SEC team in the top 7. I'm going to say that again. 6 SEC schools in the top 7. Tennessee took NC State to the woodshed, and I think Tennessee is going to be what I thought LSU was, which is one of the teams that's making the playoffs this year and contending for an SEC championship game. Nico looked incredible. The running game was great. The defensive line's maybe the best in the SEC, and I know NC State, they may be a little bit overrated this year. But Tennessee to go and win that game as thoroughly as they did, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. Wow. You talking about upset fans. Let all 6 of those teams make it to the college football playoff. We won't be saying college football playoff. We'll be saying the SEC playoff. And outside of that, really nothing of much of news and notes. Just enjoy watching college football as I always do here. And I look forward to seeing how it's going to shake up. But like I said, Tennessee's one of those teams, those up and coming, the trending upward teams. Tennessee's taken that place, what I thought LSU was going to be this year. I think Missouri's going to be decent. Obviously, we know how good Ole Miss is, Alabama, and I think Texas and Georgia are by far the best 2 teams in the country, and they play each other in a few weeks. It's going to be number 1 versus number 2. Sign me up for that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time to talk NFL here on Unsolicited Hot Take with Thrift Behringer. Cool myself off with all those hot takes here on Unsolicited Hot Take, and we'll start it with the Falcons, because the Falcons are gonna Falcon all the time, and I'm done. Kirk Cousins, of course, that would be his first performance after this mega deal and join and draft Michael Penix. Obviously, scoring 10 points offensively is what we want to see from Zach Robinson. I mean, did you expect anything different, Falcons fans? You shouldn't even be shocked or surprised. I will say this. Steelers have the best defense in the NFL. TJ Watt's unblockable. Nika Fitzpatrick's an all-pro. They're great. But I still think the Falcons could have won if Kirk Cousins doesn't make some of the bad decisions that he did. Another game that we've seen a Falcons quarterback cost this team. And now you're already hearing put Michael Penix in. He's not playing. They're not putting him in at all. But I'm really disappointed in the performance from Zach Robinson. Not even Kirk Cousins. I just thought some of the play calls were bad. Bijan Robinson didn't get enough touches as he thought he should. And then obviously the immobile Kirk Cousins with that defensive line and pressure from Pittsburgh, it sets up for a recipe for disaster. But the next week's not going to be any easier against a good Eagles team who just beat the Packers. And then you're on the road. You're going to be 0-2. And then what happens is Baker Mayfield, which I'll talk about in just a moment, it looks like he's going to be the best quarterback in the division. I'm so sad for Kyle Pitts, Drake London. These guys can't get any touches. I mean, I've given up hope these guys will get over 1,000 yards. 1,000-yard receiver where? Not for the Atlanta Falcons. This is a typical Falcon performance. I'm going to chop it up. I'm going to try to come out this optimistic. I'm not going to be pessimistic. I'm going to be optimistic and say the Falcons played a really good Pittsburgh team, and they'll be better this upcoming week. But in the back of my head, I think this is going to be another strange and stressful season for Falcons fans. Just not being able to move the football, and then when you do get momentum to move the football, you make bad mistakes, and then you didn't give up a touchdown. It's not like Pittsburgh's offense was any better. You just did everything to lose a game instead of trying to win it. And that's where I'm like, if you're Zach Robinson, you would think, is it a Zach Robinson play calling? Is it Kirk Cousins is not as good now, and obviously he's timid with the coming off the Achilles injury? There's a lot of factors that go into this, but just a sad situation after that first week coming in as one of the more hyped teams in the NFL, and then you pretty much prove everyone why you're maybe overrated. Same within the division, the Bucs. Remember when Deshaun Watson was traded by the Browns for 3 first-round draft picks? Watson looks terrible right now, and they're saying that maybe they should start Winston. So you traded 3 first-round draft picks for a guy that is a shell of himself, and the guy you did have put up over 300 yards, had the best passing game out of any quarterback in the NFL last week. That's Cleveland Browns for you. And they were a team that I thought were going to win the division. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I came guns blazing last week with the Browns, and they showed the heck am I talking about. But Baker Mayfield, man, this guy's been doubted everywhere he's gone, and he's just proven them wrong. The Bucs, I think, have the best roster. They got the best quarterback, and I think they're, and as they should be, the prohibitive favorite to win in the NFC South. They just look really good on Sunday. The Saints overrated. Panthers suck. And is Bryce Young the answer at quarterback? I don't know. I don't know if it's a culture problem and a team problem like the surrounding cast around him, or is it maybe Bryce Young is not as good as we thought he was. But to lose to 47-10 or 17 or whatever it was in week 1 with another third time having a new head coach, that's troublesome. And I think this is more than just a overall roster problem. I think maybe Bryce Young isn't the answer at quarterback. The Eagles look good against the Packers. And, of course, Jordan Rodgers, not Jordan Rodgers. That is Aaron Rodgers' brother. But the quarterback for the Packers, he got hurt in that game because they're playing in a foreign country. And you heard J.J. Watt come out and say that they have their fields made for soccer players. They don't have their fields made for NFL guys, and that's why you saw Jordan Love get hurt. They do have Malik Willis, who was a first-round draft pick a few years ago for the Tennessee Titans. But I think the Packers, who I was really high on making the playoffs this year, I don't know how good they're going to look against Indianapolis. I know the Packers may be in trouble now with Jordan Love being out for quite some time, but the Eagles look really good, and I think the Eagles are going to take the Falcons to the woodshed. We'll talk about that. That's going to be on Monday Night Football. Game of the week this past week was a preview of the NFC Championship game, the Rams and the Lions. Jared Goff looked like what I thought was my preseason NFL MVP pick. He looked like that. Matthew Stafford showed everyone he's not old, and he can make throws that only a handful of quarterbacks can make. And these two teams are the best two teams in the NFC. And I think this is a preview of the NFC Championship game. It was high-level coaching. It was high-level playing. It was just overall an incredible game. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it. Obviously went to overtime, and these two teams met my expectations for what should be the NFC Championship. I can't quit you, Jets. I know Aaron Rodgers didn't look great, and 49ers, bullied them around on Monday Night Football, but it is the 49ers. They were on the road. I'm not quitting on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets yet, but obviously there's some chemistry and issues within the receivers and Rodgers and having enough time, but I'm going to chop it up to that's just the 49ers' elite defense, and that the Jets will look better when they're playing someone other than that kind of defense. So I'm not going to quit on them yet. I overreacted to the Cowboys. Now that Jerry, who's toyed with me and everyone else in the media, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, they're probably going to make the playoffs this year. I was wrong on them. They could have beat Cleveland by 40 points. It was over with in the first half. They won at 33-17, but the second half, they were just walking around, just going through the motions. I think the Saints are overrated, and I'm not ready to say they're a contending team. I think the Panthers are just that bad, but I really like what I saw from the Dallas Cowboys for sure. Bills won against Arizona, and Josh Allen, another guy that I think could contend for an MVP this year. If you look at this upcoming week, the game of the week I think is Bucs and Lions. That's going to be, remember last year's divisional round series that Lions won 31-23. It was a close game, closely contested game. I think this week's going to be the same thing. I think that is the game of the week. I know 49ers and Vikings, both of them are 1-0, but I think the Vikings, again, you got to take a grain of salt for week one, because if you overreact in week one in the NFL, you're going to overreact every single week because the Patriots beat the Bengals, and I don't think the Patriots are going to win 5 games this year. So I don't let's slow our horses. Let's slow our roll. But I will tell you, I like what I saw from the Bucs and Lions, and I can't wait to watch that game this upcoming week. Bills and Dolphins. That's happening tonight. I think Bills win that. And I think the Bills and Dolphins are going to be the cream of the crop in the NFC East. But I only think one of those teams make the playoff because I think the Jets is the other team. But Tua Tagovailoa threw for 300 yards. He did this last year, so it's like he was on pace to, throw for 5,000 yards and be an MVP consideration. Then he gets hurt, so it's like I don't know what to think in the first couple of weeks because we've seen this same story written over and over and over again since he's been the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. But I'm gonna say, good win for them. James Cook is a great running back for Buffalo that allows them to have a premier back under Josh Allen, and I think the Bills has a more balanced offense than they have since Josh Allen has been there because they've never had a really great running game, and now they do with him. Bears and Texans is the NBC night game. The Bears won a game without scoring an offensive touchdown, and Caleb Williams didn't even throw for 200 yards. So the Texans are going to win this by 2 touchdowns. The Bears beat a bad Tennessee team when they were down 17-0. So just because they're 1-0, don't think that this game's going to be close. It is not. Mark it down right now. I think the over-under is Houston by 6. I'd take that over right now. I think they would definitely win by more than 6 points. And the Falcons are 6.5-point favorites to the Eagles. I think they lose by 2 touchdowns. I think it could get ugly on Monday Night Football. I think the Eagles' pass rush is going to get after the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Falcons' offensive line had a tough time with the Steelers. They're going to have a tough time with the Eagles, led by Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Bryce Huff. Those guys, Nakobe Dean, those guys are going to get after it. And Falcons are going to lose 31-17 around that. They're going to be 0-2. And now you're going to start hearing, fire Kirk Cousins. Bring in Michael Penix. Fire Kirk Cousins. Penix is trash. We're going to have a segment after I take a break called Crazy Chris. And I can't wait to hear what my producer, Crazy Chris, what he's got to say about all this. But in the NFL, that's what do you expect? Come out with some outrageous takes. The Patriots are going to the Super Bowl because they beat the Bengals. The Ravens are terrible because they couldn't beat the Chiefs. I mean, it's just overreaction Monday. Well, technically this is Thursday, but overreaction week here in the NFL. I will say I like what I saw from the Ravens and Chiefs. Just like I said for the Rams and Lions, Ravens and Chiefs, but I'm putting the Bills in there. But the Ravens and Chiefs could be another preview of the AFC Championship from last year. A good back-and-forth game, and Lamar Jackson, unless he gets hurt, he'll have the Baltimore Ravens in contending status. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time with Crazy Chris. I got a hot take on what happened with Tyreek Hill, and I'm going to tell you off the top of my head what happened in the year 1997, 1998. Nerd alert time on Unsolicited Hot Take with Thrift Behringer. Welcome back to Unsolicited Hot Take here with Thrift Behringer. And we're going to bring him on. It's Crazy Chris. Chris, are you ready to bench Kirk Cousins and put in Michael Penix? What do you got from the NFL? I know that's where you're pretty much fired up on, aren't you, Crazy Chris?
First off, let me dedicate this segment to our good friend, Richard Holdridge. As we were there last Thursday, and he looked so defeated when he saw Kansas City win that game against Baltimore.
It was like emphatic that they were going to beat.
He was on here last week. He was like, there's no way Baltimore's going to lose to Kansas City. He hasn't gotten over that Super Bowl. And I would know because I'm still not over a Super Bowl. That happened 7 years ago. And apparently the Falcons haven't either because they can't seem to do anything these days, whether you switch out the whole regime or whatever. Look at that. I'm so emphatic that I'm knocking stuff over. That's how fired up I am.
There's stuff falling around here in the studio. Chris and Crazy Chris, calm down, man.
You know, the funny, to go back to what you said, Thrift, I got to say this. This is my unsolicited hot take right here.
Let me hear it.
The Falcons, I'm not going to worry about them.
The Falcons.
I'm not going to worry about them. The Falcons. Sorry. No, you know what? I'm still going to call them the Cans for right now. I still am. Give them about week 6. Then they're to cancel all that after that. A good mentor of mine, it was funny, I was telling another good friend of ours, Jack Patterson. I was saying to him earlier this week when we had a good mentor, a good friend of ours. He used to be like, he's like, don't watch the Falcons on a Sunday. Don't watch them on the prime time. Don't watch them on the holidays. Don't watch them in the middle of the week, middle of the season, or the end of the season, or the playoffs. So we were like, when can we watch the Falcons? He was like, never. Then you'll be happy. I think, what happened obviously was extremely disappointing. I was disappointed too. All this hype,
but the Steelers are
talk.
Good, Chris.
No, they
Crazy
are.
Chris.
I'm not taking anything away from the Steelers. If anything, I'll be honest with you. It was good. Justin Fields has been playing well. Arthur Smith's still a terrible play caller because clearly who runs Cordell Patterson on a 3rd and 7
I'm glad
jet
you brought
route?
that buffoon up.
Good
because
Lord.
If there's anyone that I think did not win that game, as I'm messing with my mic, it was Arthur Smith. Because if he looked in the mirror and said, I just shoved it to the Falcons, you didn't.
No.
Your team just didn't lose the game.
No.
Because your play calling is bad. So thank you for bringing it up.
It was more so, and I didn't know this because I didn't watch any of them play the preseason. That Cousins didn't play in the preseason. Penix only played limited action in the preseason. So he's been sitting, other than this is the first real experience that he's had, and he went out against one of the top defenses. And I'll go ahead and throw this out. This is my nerd alert fact. I'm gonna
nerd alert.
This is my nerd alert. Nerd. Even the Matt Ryan tenure, the Falcons had never once beat the Steelers, especially a Mike Tomlin era.
Lost
Steelers.
in 2010. Lost again in 2014, and then lost again in 2018. Yep.
I think he went against them 3 or 4 times in his career. He did not. He went 0 for them against them. And there's a few teams. In Matt Ryan's, he's beaten a lot of people, but that's one of the teams he just did not get over this hump. And so this is a brand new team. We're outside of that. But Thrift, my crazy hot take: Monday night, Falcons over the Eagles. 4 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins. Explosion.
Somebody get the mic from him.
Hey. This is why I'm crazy, buddy, all right? I'm crazy because I'm going to go ahead and call it. They can't have another bad offensive game. They have to prove to everyone that this works. If they don't, then it's going to become a question of an organization thing because we're so many years removed from that Super Bowl. 28-3, yeah, we've all heard the jokes. You got to get over that. That team's not there anymore. Most of that fan base is probably not even there anymore. This is a whole brand new team with number 1 draft picks and a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, and a quarterback. 2 quarterbacks that you hope are going to prove themselves. So you can't mess around and blow away this talent. We have 14 years of excellent quarterback play from one of the greats out there. And it's really easy to forget that. Because of those 14 years, there was a lot of disappointments in that as well, too. Right. But it's overlooked by the fact that, hey, we had a consistent quarterback, and it was really good for that time. Now we've had years of just mediocrity.
Now we're appreciative about Ryan and stuff.
I mean, no offense to Ritter, and I don't really talk bad about players. It's just me. It's just one of those things. I do, but I'm just not going to say it on air. Ritter didn't cut it out. Even Arizona was like, nah. We got to get rid of this.
Yeah, this guy's overrated. But I will tell you, Chris came on here, and you heard it, 4 touchdowns, and the Falcons are going to win. Even though Kirk Cousins is terrible in prime time, and the Falcons are too, we match them together, and he says a win and a 4-touchdown performance from Crazy
listen,
Chris.
If I'm right about that, buddy, I'll come back next Thursday.
I'm bringing you on screen if you're right about that, Chris.
If I'm right about that, buddy, you come back, and I'll tell you what that winning lottery number's going to be that night, too, because, baby, we going to Vegas.
His name is Crazy Chris. It's Crazy Chris segment. Thank you, Chris. All right, let's talk about Tyreek Hill. What I saw in that video was uncalled for, it was not professional, and it was everything wrong within the justice system. If you're telling me he should have reacted that way when he was not in threat or in danger, that was solely, and it comes again, you start seeing that vitriol that a lot of these police officers have towards minorities. And even though the police officer is a minority, way he acted towards Tyreek Hill should not have happened. Then arresting and detaining Calais Campbell, again, what are you doing? Write him a ticket. Tell him that's it. Why do you need to talk to him? Hey, let me get your license. Got his license. You were trying to escalate that because you wanted that to happen. Did not like it. Thought it was disgusting. I definitely do think something should happen to this guy in terms of should he keep his job or not. I don't think. Why would you want that protecting our citizens? If he can't de-escalate a situation that should never have escalated, what would he do if there is a point where there's someone with a gun or someone that's in danger? Because obviously he can't handle it. Very disappointed from what I saw. And this is the problem that we have continued to talk about, injustices. Again, not trying to get political, but if you cannot tell me what you saw in that video was okay. There was nothing okay about that. He didn't try to run. He didn't try to cuss. At that point, they were trying to abuse their power as police officers, and that is not your job. Serve and protect, not scare and hurt. And that's what I saw with Tyreek Hill. Something's going to come out of this. But from what I saw in that video, that was uncalled for, terrible. And I don't think if you agree with that, I know the Baton Rouge police chief said they did everything right. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is why it makes police versus everyone else. Don't do that. Don't say back the blue. Don't do any of that stuff, okay? This is a lone officer who went out of his way to escalate a situation that didn't need to get to that point. So I'm not hearing anything else. This is not about being anti-police. This is saying if you're going to wear the uniform, there is certain ways on how to handle people. That's not how you handle people at all. Okay? Point blank in a discussion. Was very disappointed what I saw in the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Department for Tyreek Hill. All right, moving on. Nerd alert to end the segment. It was the year 1997. We'll start with college football. It's the final year before the BCS starts in 1998. And so in 1997, we had co-national champions. Do you remember? Michigan went undefeated. They won their Rose Bowl game over Washington State, who went 10-1. I think they were ranked number 7. Tennessee was the number 3 team with a 1-loss. Lost to Nebraska, the number 2 ranked team, who was undefeated. Michigan and Nebraska were undefeated. Michigan number 1, Nebraska number 2, Tennessee 3. And Nebraska beat Tennessee in the Fiesta Bowl 42-17. Scott Frost was the quarterback then for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Tom Osborne, this was his final year as a coach. They were co-champions with Michigan. You couldn't tell me Nebraska wasn't the better team. I'm not hearing it from any Michigan fan. Please. Nebraska was going to win that national championship. And then not only that, they dominated as Michigan beat Washington State 21-16. Nebraska dominated a better team in Tennessee 42-17. Yet Michigan stayed number 1 in the AP poll. But they were co-national champions that year. And that's when the next year, all right, we got to find a situation where we can have a national championship game where number 1 plays number 2. And the BCS was then created. Also in baseball, the Braves played the Florida Marlins in the NLCS. And guess what? The Florida Marlins upset the Braves in 6 games and played the Cleveland Indians. And the lowly Marlins, who won 50 games the previous year, won the World Series championship. Davey Johnson was the coach. And they had a couple of great players on their team. And that Florida Marlins team beat the Cleveland Indians in 7 on a game-winning hit. And that was, I don't quote me on this, but I'm going to have to look it up. That's the whole point of this was not having to look it up, but there is one particular player in that 1997 team. Like I said, it was led by Davey Johnson. They won in 7 off a game-winning hit against the Cleveland Indians. Just pulling up their roster real quick. Yeah, so Jeff Conine, Edgar Renteria, Luis Castillo, Moises Alou, and yes, I knew it, Gary Sheffield was also on that team and won the World Series championship. In the NFL, that's when John Elway got that monkey off his back as he got that chip that was on his shoulder. They upset a 2-touchdown favorite, if you'll believe it or not, Green Bay Packers, led by Reggie White and Brett Favre and Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, they beat them 31-24. Remember, that's the game that Elway just threw his body out there to get a first down. They beat Green Bay in that really good Super Bowl, 31-24, and they went on to win back-to-back Super Bowl championships. In the conference championships that year, the Green Bay Packers, looked really good, obviously, winning 13 games, making it to the Super Bowl, winning the previous Super Bowl against the New England Patriots in 13 games. And if they would have beat the Denver Broncos, they may have did a three-peat almost. Also, in that same year, we're talking about baseball, we talked NFL, we talked college football. How about the NBA? That was the final year of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls as they beat the Utah Jazz in 6, and that's the game that Michael Jordan did the crossover on Byron Russell and hit the game-winning shot. But it was the layup, strip steal of Karl Malone, then pull-up shot. It was a three-play sequence that solidified Michael Jordan as the GOAT and him winning his 6th world championship ring. In college basketball, 97-98 was the Kentucky Wildcats, who literally came back in every game they played. They called them the Cinderella Cats. They beat Utah and Rick Majerus in the national championship. They upset and came back and beat Stanford in the Final Four. They beat Duke in the Elite Eight. All the games they were losing at some point, ended up winning the national championship. And first-year head coach, Tubby Smith, it was the first African-American coach to ever win a national championship in that 1997-1998 year. Also in 1997, I think it was Jeff Gordon that won the NASCAR championship. And that's the one where I can't. Yep, and it was Jeff Gordon that won the NASCAR Winston Cup. I knew I was right because he won 96 and 97. He won back-to-back. But Jeff Gordon won the 1997 NASCAR championship in the Winston Cup Series. And I think that's pretty much it on what happened in the wonderful world of sports off of my head. And I was only 4 years old, about to be 5 in February of 1998. That year. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in. It was Unsolicited Hot Take with Thrift Behringer and Crazy Chris. I hope you're right. I hope the Eagles lose to the Falcons. You heard it. 4 touchdowns. We'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.